Oh, I'm falling off my chair. Hi everyone, so I wanted to start a new series that revolves really around short stories, which is what I read most often. So I really just wanted to recommend short stories from a few of my favorite authors, breaking down each video per author and recommending maybe about 5 to 8 stories, really depending on how many stories I want to recommend. For some of my favorite authors, it's really hard to sort of whittle the number down to like 5, so it really depends. Moving forward, how many stories I can find that I really love or have made an impact in my life in terms of loving them either for their language, their story, or just because. So for this video, I wanted to focus on one of my favorite authors, which is Jhumpa Lahiri, specifically from her 2 short story collections. The first one is Interpreter of Maladies, which was published back in 1999, so it's quite a while back, but I only started reading this when I was in college around 2008. So it took me a while to sort of get into this book. And I read it because I was doing my thesis on creative writing, and this was one of my sources. And the second short story collection by her is this one, Unaccustomed Earth, which was published back in 2008. So she has 2 short story collections and 2 novels out right now. But for today, I will be focusing on my favorite stories from these 2 books. So first off, I guess I should give a little background on Jhumpa Lahiri and why I do like her writing. So I would classify Jhumpa's work under literary fiction, specifically realist fiction. She deals a lot with the diasporic stories, so stories of immigrants and how they have assimilated into their new home from the point of view of an Indian American. I like how her characters and her stories move within people trying to understand what happens when they move away from their homeland and assimilate into a new culture. So I personally am drawn to stories that deal with identity and the immigrant experience of finding out who you are now in relation to this sort of new culture that you're trying to assimilate into, while at the same time trying not to forget where you came from. So if you're into that whole thing, then you would like her work. I'm going to leave the titles of the specific stories that I'm recommending in the description bar below. I'm going to try to find as well links to the pieces that I can find online, but most of them, I think I've done a quick Google search and most aren't available online, but you can get this in Amazon bookstores or whatever. So the first one is A Temporary Matter, which is from her first book, The Interpreter of Maladies, and it's the very first story in the book as well. So The Temporary Matter deals with a husband and wife who has gone through a big loss. I'm trying not to give spoilers here so that you can read the story if you like. So I'm just going to go through really briefly why I like the stories and why they should be read. So The Temporary Matter, the reason I like this is, first off, her language here is spot on, and I'm into the whole temporariness of things, and that is what the 2 characters in the story are dealing with, the husband and wife, where they're in this temporary state of grief, but at the same time, who is moving forward and who has stayed behind, engraved in the grief of loss. If you're into like the breakdown of relationships or how people deal with grief, this could be an interesting story for you. The next one I'm going to recommend is When Mr. Pirzada Came to Die. So it deals with a character, Mr. Pirzada, who is from Pakistan, and he is currently in New England for some scholarship for school, leaving behind his wife and 7 daughters back in Pakistan, and he's being hosted by an Indian family. So this story is really heavily rooted in the partition between India and Pakistan and the whole historical and cultural and religious implications in that whole realm. And that is carried over all the way to New England as the family deals with this new guest that they have. So this is almost like a typical diasporic story where you see the interactions between the second and the first generation immigrants as they deal with what they lost from home and what they have now. So the third story I'm going to be recommending is Mrs. Sense from the interpreter of Maladies. This is a story between Mrs. Sen, who is the wife of a professor teaching in an American university, and the little boy Elliot, who she is babysitting while her husband is away in class. And this is basically a story of the collision of two worlds, of the world that the first generation immigrant brought to America, and a little boy who is trying or learning for the first time, discovering the culture and the language of Mrs. Sen. So the next story that I'm going to be recommending from this book is This Blessed House, which is the 7th story. So this story is about a newlywed, a husband and wife, who is throwing a housewarming party for their friends, and during they're cleaning up and getting their house ready for the party, and the wife finds a lot of religious artifacts that have been hidden around the house. So it relates to the whole immigrant experience of moving to a new place and either finding it exciting or scary, depending on what you find there. And then the next two stories, or the next series of stories that I'm talking about, is from her second short story collection, The Unaccustomed Earth. So the first story that I would recommend from this book is Unaccustomed Earth, which is the title story. Unaccustomed Earth is a really long short story. It took me about an hour, 2 hours to read. It deals with a father, his daughter, and his daughter's son. So it's almost like a 3-generational story-ish. So this story, the gist of it is the father is visiting his daughter after his wife had passed away quite a while back. So if you're into the whole family dynamics, especially a family dynamic that collapses after a significant death, then this is an interesting story to get into. So the last one that I would recommend from this is actually the whole of part 2. So Unaccustomed Earth is divided into 2 parts. The first part consists of just 5 standalone short stories, and part 2 consists of 3 stories that surround the lives of Hema and Kaushik. If you're into short stories that feature the same characters, then this is for you. I would recommend reading the entire part 2. Each of the stories are written in a different style, so you don't feel like you're reading one long short story, and the point of view changes between Hamik and Kaushik. And it spans from the time they first met as a kid up to their adult life. So those are my recommendations from Jhumpa Lahiri. Let me know if you've read any of those short stories. What are your favorite stories from her? And if you have any recommendations on short stories that you think I should be reading, leave a comment down below and come say hi. So please like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!